Hello on this beautiful Saturday, Kilferncroft. Gorgeous day, eh? Lovely. A little bit hazy in the sky. Unfortunately, a few aeroplanes went over. But I thought today I'd like to talk about emotions and why they're so important in the healing process. Emotions are those feelings that we get when something happens, or when we become aware of something. And they're an integral part of the functioning of the brain and the psyche, which is the autopilot of the brain. It's the function of the brain that is able to adapt our bodies and create any symptom it wishes in its efforts to help us overcome the dangers that it perceives we have or we experience. And in so doing that, the psyche is able to create anything from cancer to candida and everything in between. So when the psyche gets activated into becoming proactive in modifying how our body's working, this modification how our body works are many and varied, okay, depending on which part of the brain is being used by the psyche, right? But nevertheless, as a general thing to say, is that when we experience a trauma which the psyche responds to as opposed to the conscious mind alone, okay, then the psyche creates an emotion at the same time as it creates a biological, or it starts a biological adaptive process to help us overcome the perceived issue. So there's two things happened at once. When we suffer one of these we would call biologically active shocks, the psyche, its priority is our survival and the survival of our pack. So it starts a biological adaptation of something about us in its efforts to help us overcome the issue which entered its awareness at the moment of the trauma. So let's say the good example, and it's an example I'm just going to quote directly from one of Dr. Hammer's books that I'm reading at the moment, is that imagine a woman, she's standing on the pavement speaking to her friend, and she's got her 3-year-old child in her hand, and she's chatting away to her friend, and then all of a sudden the 3-year-old child just yanks its hand free and runs out onto the road, and all of a sudden the woman hears a screech of brakes and a thump, and she looks round and her child's lying motionless on the road. Now in that moment the mother is likely to suffer a DHS trauma, a biologically active trauma. And in that instant, okay, the woman will feel terror for her child's safety and for that she's let the child go, and the consequences of that. And the psyche starts a process, and in this case it's likely to be glandular breast cancer. So in that instant, the psyche generates the feeling of terror for the well-being of her daughter, 3-year-old kid, and at the same time it starts a biological adaptation where it starts to increase the number of milk producing cells, or cells that are capable of producing milk in the breast, which the psyche associates with the breast that a woman would nourish her child with. So this is always the non-dominant side. So if the woman's right-handed, it'll be her left breast, because as a right-handed woman, you know, she's likely to be going about her daily chores, holding the child with her left arm if she's right-handed, and the same is the vice versa is true if you're left-handed. So in that moment where the woman suffered that trauma, okay, of the child getting hit and lying motionless on the road, the psyche kicks in that instant. The conscious mind is far too fast for the conscious mind to think of a solution to. So the psyche kicks in, it generates an emotion, and it creates a biological adaptive process to try and help resolve the situation from its perspective. So back to emotions. Why are they so important when any of us are on our journey to get well from any symptom which the body has created in itself, right? I mean, if you're going to go taking chemotherapy or morphine or heavy drugs or something like that, then that's going to create awful symptoms which the psyche isn't necessarily responding to. But I'm talking about here things like the cold, the flu, Crohn's disease, IBS, herpes, eczema, all cancers, and I say all cancers, and basically everything that the body's capable of producing. So the emotion, what's the purpose of it then? Right? Why didn't the psyche just start to adapt the woman's left breast to nourish the sickened child? Because the psyche is there to prompt the person to take the required action. Okay? We don't have emotions for no reason, or we do have a reason for us to have emotions. And the reason that we have emotions are that they motivate us. They motivate us to take action that the psyche needs in order to preserve its sense of safety and well-being for the woman or the man or the animal that's feeling it, and also the sense of well-being and safety of its place within the pack and the pack itself. Right? All of these units of life have been significant in our evolution, and we're still programmed with these reactive processes today, to this day. So emotions, why are they important? Well, in order for the woman to heal, according to Dr. Hammer's findings, all right, in order for the woman to heal her cancer, or for her cancer to go into reversal, the woman needed, or needs to, or has to resolve the biological adaptive need to nourish her child. So if, for example, the child just lies there for 2 minutes on the road, then gets up and is perfectly well, then the woman will feel a sense of relief. She'll probably be terrified of what she's done, but she'll feel a sense of relief, and the biological process will stop, and that woman will never feel a lump in her breast, because the process has only been running for a few minutes. But let's take the analogy a little bit further, and let's think about if the child was taken to hospital and it was in hospital for 6 weeks, and then it made a recovery, right? By 6 weeks passing, when the psyche perceived that the child's made a recovery, the cellular tissue stops growing. The panic button gets released in the psyche, and the whole adaptive process goes into reversal. So the psyche then uses whatever biological means it has learned to manage. It uses these means to put itself back to normal the best it can. So it tries to remove the adrenoglandular tissue which has been developed in the breast for the 6 weeks that the child was unwell. And it uses biological processes for this. And now, this little video is not really to talk about breast cancer from the GNM perspective, but it's really just to highlight the importance of emotions. Emotions are the mechanism which the psyche controls our behavior. Makes us feel love, it makes us feel hate, it makes us feel anger, it makes us feel fear, it makes us feel lust, it makes us feel empathy and sympathy, and all of these things are within our our emotional vocabulary for the greater good of us individually and our species, our pack. So when we're working with any symptom and we're looking for a way to create a cure or to make our bodies cure itself, or to stop doing the symptom, whatever that symptom is, right? When we're looking for that, we're looking for the event which started it. And we're looking for the emotional thread which is running through that event, which was triggered by that event and is not being resolved. As long as it stays unresolved, the psyche is able to keep the adaptive process going. And that adaptive process can be called, as I've said, any so-called disease you can find in a medical dictionary. Sometimes the issue or the trauma which triggered this process to start has long since become irrelevant. But the psyche very oftentimes doesn't realize that, and it can stay active. Every time the unconscious mind becomes aware of anything that reminds it of that past trauma, it's an entirely unconscious process, okay? So anytime the psyche becomes aware of anything that reminds it of that trauma, it could be a smell, a taste, a place, a name, a person, a food, or anything else, okay? It's capable of re-triggering it and keeping that symptom going. Okay, so that's a bit tricky, you might think. How do you stop that? Well, as it has been discovered and very, very well proven practically, is that when the psyche, if the actual conflictive event or the conflictive element of the event is become irrelevant, say if there's a condition such as Crohn's disease and it might have been 10 years ago or 25 years ago that it happened, maybe a big argument with the boyfriend or something like that, right? Never got resolved. But as time goes on, you kind of forget about it. But the psyche doesn't forget. So every time that psyche was reminded of that incident with that boyfriend, could be a place, a name, a colour, or anything else, a food, right? It's capable of keeping that symptom going. If you can have some therapy, or yourself, do it yourself, go back, sit in meditation, and go back in as much detail as you can remember to the actual incident that's caused it, triggered it off, that started your psyche adapting your body with whatever symptom, let's say Crohn's disease. You sit there, and if you can go back into that moment on the emotional thread which is active, go back into the moment and into the conflict or the conflictive element of that moment, which on some level you feel responsible for, or you feel that you could have, you know, you regretted something about it. If you can do that and just release that trauma by bringing that emotional awareness up to date, right? Because it's been 10 years, we've said. You can bring it up to date and up to reality and up to the conscious knowing that, hey, you've long since forgotten about that guy and you're now married with someone else and you're perfectly happy and you've got 2 kids. for example, right? That in itself is capable of switching that that element of the psyche and the brain that it's working through. It's able to switch it into healing. And what will happen then is you might have one more round of symptoms, maybe last a week or so, depending on what condition you've got. But after that, all back to normal. Your body then repairs itself to the very, very best that it can. Provided there's not too much scar tissue being made, then you'll be fine, right? And you also feel a deep sense of relief. As it's like suddenly a problem that you never realised you had has just fixed itself, and you just become aware that, oh, life feels better. So that's my message today with respect to emotions, how important they are, because A, they're the message from the psyche that tell us to do something that it needs, and B, if we haven't done that thing, if we haven't resolved it from the perspective of the psyche, and maybe years or months have dragged on, and you've got this symptom that you want over it, and whatever it is, it does not matter, you can go back with sometimes you need careful help. It does take experience. I'm not telling you this is dead easy to do. I'm just saying it's possible to do. And you go back to that event, to what we call in German New Medicine, the DHS, the trauma which left you emotionally compromised in that moment. And you have to go in on that emotional thread and resolve it emotionally if it can be done. Now, sometimes the issue which was created in that moment still continues. So therefore, the healing doesn't happen automatically when you find the moment. So what is needed in that situation is that the lingering issue, which again was created at that moment, the lingering issue has to be resolved practically. And the best we can do in that situation is to figure out what it is. And that takes quite a lot of deep therapy. But you figure out what it is your psyche actually needs for it to be resolved. And then you do it practically. You do whatever you need to do to achieve practical resolution of that unresolved issue. Right, so why am I saying this? Well, emotions are important, and they're also can be your best friend. They can lead you to a place where you can overcome your symptoms and find happiness again, and find health again, back to normal health. I don't really say get your health back, because your health never leaves you. It's just your psyche is trying to adapt your body to suit its agenda. And we just really don't know about it, and we're not trained to know about it, we're not told to know about it, and it's all kept a big secret because it probably doesn't make enough money for people. But the truth of it is that your psyche is in charge of your health and your body and your symptoms, most definitely, and that with careful and knowledgeable progress, you can heal yourself, or you can be healed. So I hope this is of interest to you. What a beautiful day, just down by the river. If I could reverse this camera, I would, but I don't know how to, so I'm just going to walk around and we can have a look at where I am. It's the river at the background. Yeah. Okay, so hope that's of interest to you, and please do get in touch if you want help with anything. I'm here, I'm working at my home. I see people on Skype or Zoom, or people can come around to my house and just speak to me if they need it. And yeah, best of luck. Be guided by your emotions. Don't try and hide them or stuff them in some part of your mind that doesn't feel them. If they're there, okay, do something about it to relieve them. And live a long and happy life. All right? See you next time.